are listening to Frog Talk, presented by Black Ribbon.
Thank you so much for joining me on Frog Talk. Today we're diving deep into the world of conscious leadership and how it can revolutionize our approach to the employer brand and company culture. We'll explore how understanding and developing emotional intelligence can create an environment where every employee feels heard, valued, and intrinsically motivated. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Dr. Ron Stotts, a three-time best-selling author with a PhD in psychology and a doctor of chiropractic. Dr. Stotts has dedicated his career to guiding entrepreneurs and executives into the highest levels of conscious leadership, blending ancient wisdom with the latest psychological and neurological studies. Welcome, Dr. Stotts.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And this topic is right in your wheelhouse. We here focus heavily on creating culture brands, specifically meaning that developing organizations that go beyond just selling products and services, and to really who put quality of life sort of above all else. And so, to kick things off, could you share with us your perspective on why it's so critical for today's leaders to evolve and embrace conscious leadership? And what challenges and stories do you have and have you observed in recent years, especially in our post-COVID work environment?
Yeah, well, I think the society has changed. The culture has changed. We had a culture where top-down, authoritative, controlling, ego-oriented leadership was really the norm and the acceptable norm. And that just became unacceptable. People aren't being taken care of. People aren't feeling like they're part of an organization, so they aren't contributing to the organization. And I think it really began back in mid-90s when, emotional intelligence, the whole concept of that came into play, and people started valuing that and to a much higher degree. And so all of a sudden people are wanting to take care of themselves. They're wanting to be in an environment where people care and they want to feel like they're part of something more valuable than just making money. And so I think employers, or 50 years of leadership research clearly shows that the more conscious an employer is, the more his or she is likely to create a more collaborative, cooperative organization that really allows people to feel valued, and then they give their all. And then, of course, everybody, production goes up and profits go up, and so the whole sense of why we're in business goes up. And so yeah, and it works well.
I agree. Man, you're speaking my language, because that's exactly the direction that I focus on. Is it's sort of like the difference between simple and easy. Just because something is simple doesn't make it easy, right? And like the concept is simple in that, and in that employees especially really just want ownership. They want to feel like what they do matters. That their contribution, there's an effect from their contribution on the end result. That they have an effect on the customer experience. And like what sets us apart, for example, is like as a branding agency, we don't just focus on the customer experience, which is the typical norm. Even leadership at these organizations typically only focus on the customer experience. They forget about who's steering the ship. And I think this approach that you're describing is so critical in creating an employee experience that makes them feel valued and feel heard and feel listened to and feel ownership. And that actually takes me to my next question, is really about an effective listening framework. So in your experience, how does an effective listening framework play into conscious leadership? What are the key components that sort of are involved in that area in this evolving workplace?
Well, certainly in old style communication, leaders really listening to them meant, what am I going to say back to this person, or how am I going to negate what they're saying, or control this environment that we're in? And it really wasn't listening at all. It was reacting. And so nobody felt valued, nobody felt listened to, nobody felt like they were an important part of something like you're talking about. And so as certainly in my clients, as they become more aware of themselves, self-aware, as they become more emotionally intelligent. And that really only takes a couple of months of really diving deeply on an inner journey that awakens them to where they're coming from, what their old patterns and habits and limitations are. But they really learn to love and accept themselves. And this relationship with themselves, of course, is always mirrored in their relationship with others. So as they are more attuned to what they're feeling, what they're thinking, they're more attuned to what other people are thinking and feeling, and more, reacting to it positively. I see my clients oftentimes going, wow, I just didn't realize how much, these people had to add, and really that they're an incredibly valuable part of the team, because they thought, oh, I have to control everything. I have to, just get them to do what I want them to do. And boy, I used to row in college, and I mean, you have to have all of the people in the boat rowing in the same direction at the same time, with a unison. So the leader today is really more about bringing out the best in others. And the wonderful thing is the organizations begin to function on such a high level that those CEOs end up doing less, in terms of that particular organization, and they go, wow, this is great. Oftentimes going on to run other organizations simultaneously, or diving into a pet project that they always thought, they'd never get to, or something
Yeah.
like that. So it works for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm smiling, laughing. For anyone listening and not watching, my smile is ear to ear right now. I'm about to cut my face in half. This is my love language, doctor. I the notion that again, it seems so simple that if you give somebody just the time of day and uh, demonstrate true empathy. Many people confuse sympathy and empathy. They're not the same thing. And empathy, just showing empathy, that you're paying attention, that you're listening, that you hear what they're saying, and you're not comparing everything they say to your own life and to your own stories and so on, but actually offering support in whatever they're describing by truly listening, and giving constructive feedback, and then listening to their feedback. This feedback loop notion is critical in any relationship, which all of which are rooted in communications. I'm uh, I'm fascinated by your focus on exploring ancient wisdom. So how does that play into, I mean, what does that mean exactly, specifically, when you say ancient wisdom? And then how does that rope into developing these applications that you talk about and describe with your clients? And can you share a
Yeah.
particular story that might shine a light on that?
Well, the one thing I find is, the biggest problem I see in leadership today is people are looking outside of themselves for answers that can only be found within. Regardless of, if somebody comes to me and says, well, I really can't get people to do what I want, and not in the way that I want, and the timing that I want. And it's exactly what you're sharing. It's like, that's because they have issues within themselves that need to be healed from their own childhood or how they've run their life. And it comes from a place of fear. It comes from a place of not being whole and accepting yourself. And so as they go on that inner journey and become more accepting and loving of themselves, they, as we talked about, they become more sensitive and open. And so, it's interesting for me, even when I'm on an initial call with somebody, I notice they're not breathing,
Hmm.
especially when they're getting into their emotional stuff or trying to think of something. Or they just aren't breathing fully, and oftentimes not breathing at all.
Right.
And I realized, oh, that's the way, old style used to be, if you had a high IQ, you could get into the right schools and you could get the right jobs, and that would get you, that was your career. But today, people are being fired because they don't have emotional
Right.
intelligence and that self awareness that they need to be able to relate with people. And so I recognize that the only way to really journey within yourself starts with breathing, because that allows you to get out of your head. And as you breathe and begin to feel, and you can go down and reconnect with your heart and reconnect with your gut, you become more connected with all of who you are. And the great thing is your brain starts working
Right.
better also.
Right.
And so in ancient wisdom, they talk about meditation, which are ways to quiet the mind. They talk about breathing, which are ways to access energy and presence and mindfulness and all of that. And so it's the wisdom of some of those ancient teachings are really applicable in today's world. And and it's exciting because it's all integrating and allowing us to become more whole and complete within ourselves again.
Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting because mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, has become quite popular, especially in the entrepreneurial space. People who are starting new businesses or just starting out. It's something that's spoken about a lot. This notion of manifesting, what you want, your vision, and there's all kinds of practical techniques behind it, and of course, more emotional techniques, and some of which what you're describing. Do you have? Can you share with me a story about like an example of a client that you worked with where this sort of mindfulness practice actually played a big part in the changes within their leadership styles?
Well, I think it's in all the stories within all of the people I work with, to be quite honest with you, because mindfulness comes from being more present. And to be present, you have to breathe and be curious, and that allows you to be more present. And when you're breathing, being more present and curious, then you're being mindful. And so you begin to practice that, and it becomes a practice where all of a sudden everything in your life, your communication, your work, your relationships, your all aspects of your life are more mindfully done because you're more present with all of them. And so, yeah, I have multiple examples where not only do they become better, more effective leaders, but they become, their spouses fall in love with this new person that they are. Their children fall in love with this new parent that they are.
Yeah.
Their whole life changes because they become more present and authentic and caring and loving, not only with themselves where it starts, but then with others as it extends out. And my little agenda is I want to create a more conscious and caring
Yeah.
world. And I happen to know from research that it's these top leaders, conscious leaders, who can have the greatest lasting impact, not only on an organization, but on a societal
Yeah.
level. And so I'm really looking at, well, okay, since I have this unique talent to take people into those levels, let's get them in there, and so we can have a chance of creating a planet that's more
Yeah.
sustainable and taking care of everybody on the way.
Absolutely. That's why I'm so glad we're talking, because I think we share a similar vision. I basically want to change how society interacts with the workplace, and where we sort of regain our most valuable not even regain, but claim our most valuable commodity, which is time. Time with our families, with our friends, to be more charitable, to help those in need, to be able to become better at being humans. I mean, the irony of humanity is that, basically speaking, if you take away our technology, biologically, we've barely changed in 6,000 years. And I think if you, and ironically, with the onset of AI and where it's headed and so on, there is a chance for a utopia where we sort of gain more time and live complementary with machines that actually help us be better at being human. And I think with your approach, and your approach is a big part of that as well. And we agree that it sort of begins in the organizational space. I believe it begins. This catalyst is the workplace, and I think that would even lead down to that would trickle down into academia, where academics starts to shift, and the mindset in academia starts to change, and the lessons we teach start to change, and critical thinking becomes more focused on, and all this. And I think there's definitely there's room for that, and I actually see a possibility What do you imagine when you envision that future for yourself?
Well, it's the future is really here in a lot of ways, as you're recognizing also. I mean, they did a survey of 1,000 CEOs, and 3 years ago, about 30% of them said, "Yeah, if you're going to be a good leader, you're going to transform your company, you have to go through a personal transformation." It's kind of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it's 90% of CEOs acknowledge that to really create a shift in your company, you have to go through a significant personal transformational
Wow.
change. So that's in 3 years. That's how rapidly changing this process is, and how significant. If you're not becoming more self-aware and emotionally intelligent, you're going to be
Right.
left behind. And because people are creating the organizations, and then the younger people coming up are creating the organizations, and the people working with those organizations are looking for those cooperative, collaborative, supportive environments that you're talking about. So it's really key. It's the times not only are changing, they have changed significantly enough. It's like you're a surfer. If you're a good surfer on the perfect wave, that's this moment in terms of leadership development. It's just ride it and have a great time. Um, if you're not a good surfer and you're at the bottom of the wave, then it's going to crash on you. If you're not becoming more
Yeah.
intelligent, sensitive and aware, it's not going to work
Right.
for you. And the great news is all the research, and certainly my own experience with clients, is it increases productivity and profits by, the research says, 40%. I see it increasing even, I have a client who's got 5 9-figure businesses who tripled the value of 3 of them in 1 year because of those changes that he, went through within himself. He also, reconnected with the love of his life, and they got married and are living happily ever after. So it's a whole life transformation. As you say, I think your point's really well taken. You begin to treat people better at work, they treat their family better. It just the waves just go right out into society as work is more focused on that collaboration and bringing out the best in everybody. Schools are going to have to shift. It's not just informational. It's not just that left brain that needs to be developed. It's that whole brain, whole heart, whole gut, experience, those are all literally aspects of our brain that need to be included.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a beautiful story. I have a feeling you're a surfer. Are you a surfer?
Well, I have spent most of my life on the beach.
um, that was
Lately,
such a
surfing
specific
and
analogy. Only
water
a
sports.
surfer would have come up with that analogy. The
Yeah.
What you said about how it increases productivity and profit is that's something that I believe is often overlooked in traditional leadership and more conservative leadership that's sort of stuck in the old ways, as it were. And again, like the whole focus on the customer experience, and it's about the customer journey. It's customer satisfaction. The customer is always right. Da 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 da. It's not to say you should ever put the customer aside. Absolutely not. It just means that there should be
No, no.
equal emphasis and equal focus on both sides of that coin. One side being inside your company, being the employee experience and the employee journey, employee well-being, and so on. And it's a completely different brand strategy. Your mission for your customers is not the same thing as your mission for your employees. It's a different narrative. It's a different motivation. It's the two questions, right? Like the customer question is, why should anyone buy from you? The employee question is, why would anyone want to work here? And there was this, probably better than I do, because this conversation still happens, but it used to happen more often in my experience, where you ask somebody about their job and they're like, "Oh yeah, I love my clients. My clients are the best. They always have my back. They're so supportive of me. They send me gifts and this and that. They always remember my birthday. And they're always like, if you ever left, I would definitely go with you." And I'm like, "I didn't ask you about your clients. I asked you about your job." And then they go, "Oh, I hate my job. I hate the people I work with. They're always talking behind my back. My boss is a jerk." And I'm like, why is that conversation so common? And that's what sparked the whole culture brand notion to me. I love that you highlight the fact that if you take care of your people, and you create an environment of support and ownership and value and so on, the bottom line inherently grows. I mean, you just become more attractive overall. Everyone wants a piece of you. You know, they want to work with you, they want to buy from you. And inherently, there's no logical reason that you wouldn't succeed if you're just working with that
Yes,
grain.
I agree.
And I find it, fascinating that in this, still today, because you said we're here now, it's happening now, and I agree with you, where you'll have managers and leaders just harping on the money, the money, the money, the revenue, the money, and I'm like, but where's the money coming from? So, you know what I mean?
I think you have to pay attention to all stakeholders,
Yeah,
who you're buying from, who you're selling to, the planet. Everything is connected to your organization, and everything has to be considered
yeah.
and cared for in that. It's just, it's just as you should be taking better care of yourself in the bigger picture of your life, you should be taking care of your organization and everything involved and connected with it.
How would you suggest, at least maybe even in your own practice, when you speak to your clients and to these leaders, how would you say leaders can inspire a community of practice movement around continuous cultural improvement? Like, how would they inspire that within their own organizations, within their own communities, beyond, working on themselves first? How do they manifest that outward?
Well, I think, I don't want to discount that small point of after, because it really, they become learners. They create organizations that are learning organizations. That doesn't mean they don't create widgets or whatever they do, but it's all about learning. And we're in a world that is all about change. Change is the one constant in existence, and everybody is frightened of it and resistant of it. And it's like, no, we're here to evolve. We're not here to stutter and stop going through different comfort zones that allow us to tolerate our fear. We're here to evolve. We're here. Literally everything that comes into our life is nothing but an indicator that of something that's ready to be healed and accessed within ourselves. So you can't look at all these challenges and troubles in that way. You have to look at them, oh, here's another learning opportunity. Here's another opportunity for me to grow and become. And, you start seeing life that way, and it's really rigged in our favor because, we're getting these gifts that tell us exactly what we need to, or are able to access and grow into at that point. Your dreams are nothing but your higher aspirations. And the next question should be, yes, that's my dream. That's my sense of purpose in life. But who do I need to become to really bring that into fruition? Who do I need to become to create that life that I want?
Right.
And so, yeah, yeah.
So, if you had to go in and take that had to with a grain of salt, because I'm curious about your approach in your coaching, in your own practice, and so on. Are there sort of pragmatic strategies that you encourage that can be used either by leaders to uh, offer their employees to become active participants in like shaping company culture, or even within themselves? More of a, again, just to reiterate the word, like a more pragmatic approach, something more tangible, or is it, actually, I'm going to leave it there. I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, we'll leave it right there. Well, I mean, for example, if a CEO comes in, which is quite common, they're restructuring their life as a result of the inner work that they're doing. They do the initial couple month program that gives them a foundation to build their life on, and then they do a 9-month program that integrates everything they're learning into their life. And it's really, as they do that, they are really, as we've talked about, including everybody around them. And so they begin to send in their C-suites. And, it's
Mm.
like that one fellow who's got 5 businesses. He was micromanaging all of them and was exhausted and incapable of really maintaining his lifestyle. And so he started sending me the C-suites that then, of course, moved into those CEO positions of each, and that allowed him to really focus on one aspect of one of those organizations, which he's now turning into something that'll be more profitable than all 5 of those organizations.
Wow.
And that's really normal. That I see all the time. And so, it's got to start at the top from the looks of it. It really does. But on the other hand, everybody is a leader, and so that whole concept of you've got to go up this ladder and rung at a time, and that's out the
Yeah.
window. Now you can, by just really going on that inner journey, really becoming a conscious leader, which it happens relatively, I'd say, within a year for most clients. They are able to step into whatever position because they're contributing to the organization. I mean, I had a client, it was just last week when I was talking with him, kind of a check-in call. And, I remember a year ago when he came to me, he's kind of an introverted, I don't feel like I fit in. And, there was a fairly high testosterone board that was running things. And all of a sudden now he's being asked to step into the highest levels of the leadership. And he's kind of going, well, just maybe I'll do that as a consultant because I've got these other ideas that I want to develop. And he really is going to be influencing, huge numbers of people in terms of helping them become more self-aware and conscious. So, it's the practicalities are really the same. You've got to make it safe for people to breathe. You've got to make it safe for people to become emotionally intelligent. I mean, when I was a kid, I wasn't supposed to be afraid. I mean, the truth is, I don't ever know whether I was or wasn't. It was such a taboo. you know. And on the other hand, I wasn't supposed to get angry because that wasn't, in my parents' comfort zone. So, it took me, I remember the first time I was in a workshop and I felt anger. It was like, geez, I'm going to destroy this whole building. You have to make it safe for
Yeah.
people to feel
Yeah.
and to heal and to become and accept all of who they are, because all those parts that we shove down just to be accepted and loved by others as a child are incredibly valuable parts of who we are and what we need to step into those levels of development and evolve to where we're capable of being. I kind of have this image of we're all pieces of a puzzle, and we won't really know what the capability or the appearance of that puzzle is until we all participate. So it's like, it's not like, oh, well, you can sit over there and we don't need to know that piece. But,
Right.
it's like, no, everybody needs to come in. We need to include everybody.
Right. And a dire consequence, which is seen over and over again, when we push down those sort of parts of ourselves, it gives rise to darkness, to dark parts of ourselves. Like, for example, my greatest demon is my anger. I've been struggling with my anger since I was a kid, and I've grown into accepting, not accepting it, but like coming to terms with it. It's the strongest part of my ego, and I've had, in the last, I turned 40 this year, and I really started tackling it actively when I was about 26 after an episode that I wish didn't happen. But
Yeah.
it was where in the simplest terms, I essentially created a framework for myself where I identified my truths, like what my essence was and what the important values in my life are, no matter what, regardless of the circumstances. Like, what can I lean into to always sort of bring myself out of any sort of dark cloud? And in a word, it's my integrity. So I decided that, whenever I feel like that, to your point, first of all, I breathe, I meditate, I actually take a good 5 minutes or something and just breathe through it, and then come to like a state of centeredness and sort of remind myself that my integrity is actually more powerful than my anger, and there's no need to be angry right now. It's not even like replacing it. It's kind of like sidestepping my anger, like walking, holding.
So what's underneath that?
I'm sorry.
What's underneath that anger? What is underneath that
Uh,
anger?
it's in a word, it's my ego. It's like the way, and the ego in the simplest way is described as our opinion of how the world should be, and it's just like
Uh-huh. And where does that come
it comes from a member of my family. It's actually it's like it's a
vague member?
reflection. It's almost identical to that person's anger. Um,
Uh-huh.
but it's
Right.
something that, yeah, I have. If you ask my mother, for example, she'll tell you like how much I've improved over the last 20 years, and it's a constant work in
So
progress.
if you understand the source of it, do you understand that you adapted
Yeah.
that, you adopted that, if you will, to fit in,
Hmm.
to be
Yeah.
accepted? That's you looking outside of yourself, of course, for that love and acceptance as a child, which is reasonable and appropriate. But as an adult now, how do you look within yourself for love and acceptance? And of course, it's really breathing into and acknowledging, expressing, and releasing that attachment, that anger, first of all, and what it's all about and where it's from, but also letting go of that needing that
Yeah.
acceptance from somebody else. It's accepting yourself. It's opening up your
Yeah.
heart. That anger, for example, is just armor over your heart because you don't feel safe opening it because as a child it wasn't safe
Yeah.
to open. And so now, like, no, I mean, I can see who you are. You're a very heart open or heart felt guy, and so it's difficult to have a part that you're trying to hide when you're trying to open up your heart. So you just literally go in and heal
Yeah.
that part, acknowledge, express, and release the emotions around that family member, and
Yeah.
uh, and 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 move beyond it, so you're not at the effect of it anymore. And again, that people think, oh, well, that's psychology. That's going to take forever, and no, it doesn't take forever at all. Once you learn how to do it, you are empowered to really
Yeah.
continue that journey throughout your life. When anything comes up, you know exactly what to do. You know how to breathe. You know how to look deeper. You know how to access and heal whatever is there so that you can really access the part you need to then continue to evolve in your life.
Absolutely.
It's really all
Yeah.
connected.
No, thank you. I appreciate that insight, and I actually think that's a perfect note to end on. I wanted to one, thank you so much for coming on, but also tell our audience how they can find you if you want to plug anything here. Now is the time.
Yeah, I would say just go to my website at ronstotts.com is the easiest way to find out who I am, what I've got available. Get on a discovery call with me so that we can look at what your biggest challenge is, what your dream is, and what sort of transformation you'll want to go through to be able to create that life, that dream that you have. And it's doable, and I watch it all the time. That's why I continue doing what I do.
Fantastic. That's Dr. Ron Stotts. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was honestly a pleasure, man. And we'll be talking again very soon. Thank you so much.